You are watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. The time has just gone 6:35. Thanks for your company.
No,
Keep going. She keeps going.
Good, isn't she? She doesn't stop when she winds you up and off you go.
I do, yeah. Off I go. Look, it's nice and early as well. I've had my coffee. Ready to go.
She's a lot of fun to work with. Let's have a look at the newspapers today, and guess what? They're dominated by one story. Trust fights for survival, says The Times.
Guardian says a day of chaos as Trust performs yet another U-turn.
The Mail asks how much more can she and the rest of us take?
Significant from the Mail, that one, I think. I don't know who's this from. Roll up a bit just so I can see.
So
Telegraph. There you go. He's rolling down too quickly on the autocue. Telegraph says Truss clings to power after axing Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng.
The Mirror says time's up as the Chancellor is fired.
And The Sun pays tribute to actor Robbie Coltrane, known for playing Hagrid in Harry Potter, who's died at the age of 72.
I feel sorry about that. 72's no age either. Let's go through the papers now this morning with political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield, and author and broadcaster Nicky Hodgson. Good to see you both this morning. I guess we better start with the Prime Minister. Kevin, what's the Mirror saying?
Yeah, quite simply they're saying time's up. I think the story now moves on to whether and how long Liz Truss can survive. They're rightly saying that Tory MPs are plotting now, quite openly almost, to bring her down. And I think the only thing stopping it is there's no straightforward way of getting rid of it. Yeah. I think it would be a bit like the Boris Johnson demise in that the cabinet or Graham Brady, the chair of the 1922 committee, we need to go to her and say, look, you've completely lost the confidence of the MPs. You're going to have to go.
She's not going to listen to Graham, is she?
Well, not when she's only been Prime Minister for 6 weeks, less than 6 weeks actually, you know, so it's utterly humiliating to have to give up so soon. So she's going to try and style it out really, but it's going to be very difficult. I mean, after yesterday, she actually made things worse with the press conference.
I was going to ask you about that, the press conference.
I think so. I mean, from the MPs I've spoken to, I think they were looking for her to project a bit of leadership, confidence, but you know, only taking 4 questions. I think it just made her look quite weak, not sure of her position.
Sorry, Ellie, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, what do you think that was then? Because you're right. I mean, I think it was less than 9 minutes that press conference last night. As you say, she took 4 questions, didn't take the questions from the floor. And at a time when morale is that low in the Conservative Party, is what we're hearing, you would think that's the time for her to want to stand up and steady the ship, and she didn't do that. Why do you think?
Well, she was already on the back foot from Wednesday night. That was the meeting of the 1922 committee, and she appeared before them. And you know, from MPs I've spoken to, it was a bit of a car crash really. You know, she wasn't impressive. They said she was wooden, and we saw that for ourselves on the TV yesterday. You know, I just don't think she came across as a strong leader, as a good Prime Minister. And you know, image matters. Leaving the policies to one side, and that's been bad enough, but just being able to project a little bit of control, a bit of leadership, she just failed to do it.
Wasn't she doing that by saying, look, I've got rid of the Chancellor, my closest ally and closest friend in Parliament, and I've made a massive U-turn on the tax issue, which was the one area that was meant to spark growth. I mean, she's effectively ripped up the mini-budget.
Oh, she has.
One foul swoop.
Yeah.
Isn't that showing, I mean, it's a U-turn, but isn't leadership saying, well, I'm going to have to take action here?
Well, you could, I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but obviously this is the second big U-turn from the mini budget. There's a 45p, and also I don't think it helped as well that she gave the same answer to every question. She didn't actually engage with the questions she was. I mean, they were tough questions. You know, why are you still here, basically? And she just did not engage at all. Try to put forward her case for staying in the post. And as I say, MPs were describing it to me as dire, dreadful, and you just feel that there's now a head of steam building that will ultimately bring her down.
The Express, Nicky, talks about the vultures circling, doesn't it?
Well, it
was so funny because I was only here 2 weeks ago and I said, I was reporting on something and it said there's a chance that she might be gone by November, and we all went, November? But actually it's looking more likely that that might happen. So yeah, I mean, it's really about the Conservative Party sacrificing her to save themselves, isn't it, at this stage?
But it wouldn't save them, would it?
Well,
that's the
well,
thing.
this is the issue. They're between a rock and a hard place because they stagger on with Truss, who hasn't got the confidence either of MPs or the country, or they put somebody else in and then, probably, they're just going to lose the election because there's so much chaos. But there's the suggestion that Rishi Sunak with Penny Mordaunt could make a comeback, this kind of dream team of the candidates that didn't get through in the first place, because Rishi is seen as a safe pair of hands with the economy.
See, interesting, someone very senior yesterday said to me, that's nonsense.
Oh, excellent. Well, maybe it is. It's just what everybody's reporting.
It's what everyone's reported, but I
Yeah.
was told it was nonsense.
I think that it's certainly not open and shut. It sounds on paper, yeah, great, Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt, you could see it working, but there's so many hurdles. I mean, does Rishi Sunak even want it? Really, after a bruising summer leadership contest, rejected by the members. That was only a few weeks ago. I mean, can he really be bothered with the hassle?
Well,
it's not
there's also
like he
a
needs it.
suggestion here that Jeremy Hunt might try and stab her in the back because he has. Didn't he run for
Has he
twice
manoeuvred?
already?
Yeah.
Has he manoeuvred himself in for that?
Well,
that
that's a
reason?
suggestion that could be. She thinks she's, playing a strong hand by putting somebody in who's got lots of policy experience, but actually it could again be to her detriment.
But look, let's work on the basis then that there's a very real chance that she may go say before Christmas, right? Because whether you like that or not, that's a possibility now. You can't just they can't do the leadership thing again, can they? Even if it's a coronation, without, the calls from the Labour Party and frankly probably most of the people in the country is going to be, you need to have a general election.
Yeah.
Well, that's Turkey's voting for Christmas.
The appetite
Yeah.
for that, an election before Christmas, it's just at this stage in the proceedings, I think the voter turnout will be extremely low if that happened.
One MP did say to me, though, that at the moment, looking at the opinion polls, the difference between keeping Liz Truss and getting rid of her could be having 50 MPs after the next election for the Tories, or 200.
Yeah.
That's how desperate. I think that's an exaggeration myself, but that's basically where a lot of Conservative MPs' minds are right now. It's like going into an election with Liz Truss is unthinkable. They think replacing her with anyone is surely going to be better than going into the election in the current situation that they find themselves in. So that's why they're just, they're
in turmoil.
in complete turmoil.
I know there'll be a lot of people watching and listening, emailing and saying, give her a chance, leave her alone, let her get on with it, all this. I think it's a perfectly valid opinion. I think there are a lot of people, and even people like us who've dealt with this business for a very, very long time. I was at home last night thinking, I can't get my head around this. I can't work out quite how we are in such utter chaos here.
I think it's the fact that it's happened so quickly. A lot of people, no fans of Liz Truss, said, she'll be a disaster. But no one, even her biggest critic, would have thought that we'd be here after 6 weeks.
There hasn't been a quiet day, has there?
No.
This is what the Guardian is saying. It was a day of chaos yesterday, and the question will be now, Jeremy Hunt, is that enough to steady the ship for now?
He's very unpopular with a lot of voters.
But popular in the party,
isn't it? Popular in the party. But again, popular in the party might mean that the party decides, well, he'd be a better leader. So I guess we have to wait and see.
Although he was rejected by the party only 3 years ago in favour of Boris Johnson and didn't even make it onto the
shortlist,
the second round of voting with the MPs in the summer there. So what I thought was interesting was one of his close allies, Steve Bryan, former minister, was doing the rounds last night on the broadcasters, and he said it twice, so it obviously wasn't a slip of the tongue. He said, if you think about it this way, going forward, Liz Truss is the chairman and Jeremy Hunt is the chief executive, which is obviously, if he's close to it, that's undermining
very much
Liz Truss right from day one. So, I just think that something's going to have to give one.
Where does it leave other ministers? We had Greg Hands on the show yesterday, who's only just been reappointed.
Yeah.
Right? He spent the entire interview saying, there will be no U-turn, the Chancellor is not going. I just thought, well, he's been made to look extremely stupid.
Yes.
Has he, within the space of about 6 hours, 5 hours from that interview?
Well, yeah, and he was a Rishi Sunak supporter, and he was brought in just a couple of weeks ago, and it was seen as an olive branch to that wing of the party, because obviously when she first took over the job, she made sure that basically anyone that hadn't supported her was cast to the wilderness, which was one of the main criticisms against her. So then you bring in Greg Hands, and he's made to look a fool yesterday, going out there defending, saying there'll be no more U-turns, Kwasi great chancellor, he's safe as houses, and then a few years later he's sacked. You know, if you're Greg Hands, you're thinking, why do I need this asshole, you know? So he doesn't owe her anything now.
Well, the whole thing just smacks of desperation, and it's like you said, Kevin, about the appearance yesterday. It was so paltry, and you thought that maybe she'd step up, maybe be a bit more human, a bit more contrite, which is what you would imagine Boris Johnson would have done, for example. But she just doesn't seem to have it, and you know, that would at least keep her, you know, protected with the voters if she was personable in that way. So she's kind of losing on both sides.
Interesting. Look, can we have a look? Change tack slightly. Actually, Nikki, can we look at this, because I want to cover in the Star, Robbie Coltrane.
Yes.
Because I mean, there's a whole generation known as Hagrid, in which he was superb in Harry Potter. I remember him more fondly as Cracker.
Me too.
Because that was an amazing show.
Yeah.
And I can't believe he's passed away at such a young age.
I know, so, like you said, 72 is no age. It's so sad. I think what's been really lovely about all the tributes that have been pouring in is how much they stress his intelligence and his kindness and just how nice he was to work with. Because actually, lots of people have massive egos in drama and acting, and apparently he just didn't. He was very generous with his knowledge and his talent. And yeah, I remember him from Cracker. It's kind of like a very strong memory of my childhood, watching him on ITV, kind of in these very bleak landscapes, smoking a cigarette, figuring out how he's going to crack the next crime.
Yeah.
I do think it's a bit frustrating how if somebody has been in Harry Potter, they are always then known as the Harry Potter actor, because he had such a wide repertoire. He could do any kind of acting as well. But yeah, it's just very sad, but very lovely what people are saying about him too.
I think as well, it's the power of you know, the influence he had on so many people's childhoods. I mean, I grew up with Harry Potter. He used to come out, you know, my birthday every single year. We'd all go to the cinema and watch it. And I grew up with him, and I think that's what the actor who plays, I'm doing it now, Draco Malfoy, Tom Felton, I think his name is. He was saying it's millions of children that love him. I mean, it's the most incredible legacy, really. And there is this clip that's going viral at the moment of Robbie speaking a few years ago, saying, "Look, there'll be children in 20 years' time watching the Harry Potter films. I won't be here, but Hagrid will." I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I haven't.
Legacy.
I haven't told my kids yet that he's died. No, because I just thought Friday night it's not. Nice at the end of the week, you know. But yeah, they'll be really upset because
we're going through
big fans of big fans of Harry Potter, and that's how they will remember him. But you're right, his repertoire actually was huge, a fantastic actor, and I think it's come as a shock because it came from left field. Really, no one knew if he was ill. I don't even know if he was ill. You know, it just seems to have just been a complete shock.
Yeah, that hasn't been said yet, has it?
Yeah, so it was one of those, when you saw the news, it stopped you in your tracks.
I tell you what, it's going to be slightly weird for people who go to the Harry Potter studio thing, because I don't know if you've been, but when he's walking about in the films as a giant, it's actually a very, very tall man with a Hagrid animatronic head on.
Oh wow!
Which is it is Robbie Coltrane.
Yeah.
But this head that moves the eyes, the lips, the face, everything moves. So some of the shots you actually see in the film aren't him at all.
Yeah.
It's a robot.
Oh wow.
And it's the most amazing thing. So that head is there.
Yeah.
And it's quite remarkable to see. It's going to be even more poignant to see it now.
I think, didn't J.K. Rowling say as well that as she wrote the character, she had Robbie Coltrane in mind. You know, because obviously he was a big man in lots of ways. You know, a huge personality. And just Nikki made the point that there's no a bad word to say about him. You know, he obviously was a really, really genuinely nice fella. So it's incredibly sad.
Yeah, and like you say, Nikki, I think that the children in the Harry Potter series were saying he was like a fun uncle, and he really looked after them on set. So no, it's really lovely tributes that are coming out today.
We should all raise a glass to him tonight. I think wouldn't be a bad thing. And it would help the pubs out as well, going to the FT.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just getting back to politics, you know, we talk about at Westminster, we get obsessed about personalities and who's up, who's down, but, you know, the real world consequences of the rising energy prices, rising interest rates is really being felt by the hospitality industry, and FT's got a really interesting feature here, speaking to restaurateurs, pub owners, just about the difficulties that they are facing. You know, they've just about survived the pandemic, and they thought that things were on the up, and now they're being hammered by, say, energy prices and rising interest rates. So it's just interesting, you know, what they're talking about. Some of them having to dip into their own savings, obviously cutting back on staff, which knocks onto the economy as well. Less people with money to spend, and it just becomes a vicious circle. So yeah, it's a pretty bleak feature, but I think it's important, you know, that people realise that, you know, if you do have the spare money, to go out there and support your local pub, because once these establishments go, in a lot of communities, you know, that is the hub of the community. Once they go, it's very difficult for them to come back.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the almost the unseen consequence of the economic turmoil.
It's so, like you say, it's a sector that was already on its knees, wasn't it? Coming out of the pandemic.
Well, it has been for a long time.
Yeah.
It's really, really...
Even pre-pandemic,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's the cheap booze in the pubs and all the rest of it. That's had the British Beer Pub Association up in arms for years now. How about you like popping to the pub, don't you, Nick?
Well, yeah, I'm pregnant at the minute, but I do still go in there and have something non-alcoholic. My husband actually works in hospitality and was a bar owner and then sold his business very luckily after the pandemic. But it's just never ending. It felt very much during the pandemic that hospitality were the last people to receive help. And, you know, that, if you think right back to the beginning of the pandemic before we had lockdown and Boris left the pubs hanging on that Friday night and everybody was just kind of hemorrhaging cash thinking we're all going to go bust. We had that. We thought we were going to lose everything. And, you know, the fact that they've rebuilt and then again they're facing, oh no, this avalanche of problems. People that work in the industry are, you know, they are so determined. They have so much grit. So, you know, if you like the pub, go. And also they have a much better selection of non-alcoholic drinks now, as I'm finding out. So non-alcoholic beers and all the rest of it. So you don't need to be a drinker to have a good time there. But
Yeah, but like you say though, it's like pulling things out of a hat. I mean, I was in a restaurant a few weeks ago doing a story about this, and it was actually when the pound fell that Thursday, I think it was. I went to speak to a Spanish restaurant which imports most of their food, obviously most of their wine, most of their meat, and they buy it in dollars. So he was making massive losses on the food, and he was saying the energy bills to heat the restaurant are massive. Cost of oil, which is and wheat, which is Ukraine crisis. I mean, he just said it's the perfect storm. I mean, and it's always pulling something out of a hat to get people through the door, get people coming in and spending money. It's a massive challenge.
It is a challenge. If you want to go and support your pub tonight,
or your local restaurant.
Let us know where you're going, where you're heading to, where you live. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Look, Nikki, Kevin, thank you both very much indeed. Good to see you. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on.